Here's what nobody talks about when they romanticize 1980s Hollywood. Studios were handing directors blank checks and watching them rebuild entire towns for movies nobody wanted to see, and then acting completely blindsided when everything collapsed into financial ruin. Two films on this list didn't just bomb at the box office, they completely bankrupted their studios and erased them from existence. One filmmaker spent 10 years making movies he didn't want to make just to pay off the debt from a single passion project. We're starting with a movie that had every advantage except timing, because Universal decided to release it 2 weeks after Indiana Jones. Walter Hill had just given Universal a massive hit with 48 Hours when Streets of Fire went into production in 1984, and the studio basically told him to do whatever he wanted. Hill's vision was a rock and roll fantasy with 1950s aesthetics and 1980s music, stylized in ways nobody had really tried before. $15 million went into the budget, and the plan was to launch a trilogy that would spawn sequels for years. The movie has this timeless quality that's genuinely hard to describe unless you've actually sat through it. Universal scheduled the release for June 1st, 1984, which sounds fine until you realize Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom hit theaters on May 23rd. $8 million came back from the box office. The trilogy died before anyone could pitch a second installment, and the film found its only life as a cult curiosity on late-night cable instead of the franchise starter it was designed to be. Artistic vision means nothing when your studio tosses you into a release date designed for failure. That same year brought us The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension, which was supposed to become the next Star Wars with its $17 million budget. This sci-fi action comedy came with intentionally confusing lore that the studio looked at and had zero idea how to sell to audiences. Limited theatrical release, almost no promotion, and a domestic box office of $6.3 million killed the franchise before it could breathe. The strange twist that VHS tapes and midnight screenings turned this into a genuine cult classic years later. People who discovered it loved what they found, but there weren't nearly enough of them when the money needed to come in. Studios hate this kind of delayed success because you can't plan a business model around audiences deciding what becomes culturally important 5 years after release. Bill Murray's career nearly ended because of what happened next. The Razor's Edge was the passion project Murray used as leverage, telling Columbia he'd only star in Ghostbusters if they'd let him make this Somerset Maugham adaptation first. The story follows a WWI veteran searching for spiritual meaning, heavy and existential in ways that had nothing to do with comedy. Columbia agreed because Ghostbusters was worth any compromise. Audiences who loved Murray in Stripes and Caddyshack showed up expecting laughs and got confronted with trauma and philosophy instead. Critics tore apart his dramatic performance. The box office numbers were disastrous, and Murray was so emotionally devastated by the rejection that he vanished from Hollywood for 4 years. Ghostbusters made nearly $300 million that same year. Murray had proven he could carry a blockbuster and handle serious material, but audiences only wanted one version of him, and making them feel deceived meant star power counted for nothing. Everyone knows Ishtar is a punchline, but the production was somehow worse than the jokes suggest. Warren Beatty and Dustin Hoffman signed on for a comedy about two terrible lounge singers who stumble into spy adventures, and the original script was reportedly solid before cameras started rolling. Production reports describe Beatty and Hoffman constantly competing with each other, while director Elaine May lost any semblance of control over the shoot. 40 takes per scene became normal, and money burned on absurd expenses like $12,000 daily just to keep ice available in the desert. $51 million vanished by the time filming wrapped. $14.4 million came back domestically. The movie became such an instant cultural disaster that people who've never watched it can tell you it's terrible. May didn't direct another film for more than a decade, and reputations that took years to build crumbled in months. Sometimes, having too much star power creates the actual problem instead of solving it. Ishtar humiliated people but didn't destroy a company. Heaven's Gate did. Michael Cimino won Best Director for The Deer Hunter, and United Artists responded by telling him to make whatever he wanted next. An epic Western sounded reasonable until Cimino started rebuilding entire frontier towns multiple times because the look wasn't exactly right. The production burned through 1.3 million feet of film, and his first assembly cut ran 5.5 hours. $44 million in 1980 money went into production. $3.5 million came back. United Artists collapsed as a functioning studio and got sold to MGM. An entire major Hollywood institution ceased to exist because one filmmaker had unlimited freedom and nobody watching over his shoulder. Directors lost creative control across the industry after this because Heaven's Gate proved that artistic license without guardrails could kill more than just a single movie. Inchon might be the weirdest disaster on this list. The Unification Church, yes, the Moonies, financed a Korean War epic about Douglas MacArthur as essentially propaganda for their ideology. Laurence Olivier showed up to set allegedly drunk, production descended into chaos, and the budget swelled to $46 million. $5.2 million came back from theaters. Critics destroyed it, and the church reportedly bought back prints to erase the film from public memory. Finding a copy today is nearly impossible, which proves that ideology doesn't sell tickets, and religious organizations really hate public humiliation. Terry Gilliam's The Adventures of Baron Munchausen had a budget that doubled from $23 million to $46 million because strikes hit, weather turned catastrophic, and cast problems multiplied. The real killer was that studio leadership changed hands during production, and the new executives hated everything about the project. They dumped it into theaters with almost no marketing support. $8.1 million at the box office. Robin Williams appeared in the film but used a fake name in the credits, and Gilliam was financially destroyed except for managing to keep his house. When studio executives stop believing in your movie halfway through production, you're already finished regardless of what happens next. Megaforce thought it was building the next Star Wars. Action franchise potential, toy merchandising, a partnership with Mattel for vehicles and action figures that would print money for years. The vehicles built for filming didn't actually work properly, which meant replacing failed stunts with cheap animation that looked unfinished even in 1982. Mattel bailed early when they saw what they'd signed on to. The studio made everything worse by releasing the film against E.T. and Blade Runner in June 1982, and $5.7 million ended the franchise before it started. You can't build a toy empire on a movie that looks like production stopped before anyone finished it. Mac and Me was so shameless that even McDonald's wanted distance from it afterward. An alien movie openly financed by McDonald's and Coca-Cola treated product placement as the entire reason for existing rather than something to hide. A dance sequence set in a McDonald's restaurant goes on for several minutes of screen time. Critics immediately called it what it was, a feature-length commercial. Audiences stayed away, 6.4 million came back, and McDonald's reportedly distanced itself from the project as quickly as possible. People really hate feeling sold to without their consent, and this film treated viewers like they were too stupid to notice what was happening. Francis Ford Coppola's One from the Heart was the second Bankruptcy, an experimental musical romance shot entirely on sound stages. Coppola was so confident in his vision that he self-financed the budget overruns with his own money. $900,000 came back from the box office. Coppola's studio went bankrupt, and he spent the next decade directing films just to pay off what he owed. This wasn't a studio gambling on a director. This was a director betting everything on his own artistic vision while audiences felt no emotional connection to what he'd created. Vision without resonance is just financial suicide dressed up in artistic language. Looking across all these disasters, the pattern becomes obvious. Unchecked ego, studios releasing films at the worst possible moments, marketing teams with no idea what they're selling, actors playing against type when audiences don't want that. The 1980s proved that excess doesn't just waste money, it destroys careers and entire studios and futures that could have been. Hollywood keeps making the same mistakes with bigger budgets, but the lessons haven't changed at all. Have you actually watched any of these films? Because some of them are genuinely worth seeing as historical disasters, even when they're not good movies. Let me know in the comments, and if you want more stories about Hollywood's most expensive failures, hit subscribe because there's a whole century of this material.